Welcome to Red Bandana Gaming, the channel where Logan will show you everything from gameplay to gear. Their crew is here to take you on a journey through every atmosphere. Releases to news, you don't have to choose. Red Bandana Gaming is here for you.
Hey everybody, Logan here. Now, today's topic, I had to think about it a little bit. Why? Because as someone who collects a lot of games, and it's not just me who's come to this realization, a couple of other channels have touched on this, other gaming-centric channels, of course. And those of us who tend to collect, especially those retro consoles like, well, Super Nintendo, NES, Nintendo 64, Sega Genesis, stuff like that, it's become very pricey, especially in the last 2 years. So with my collection videos that I've put up, Game Room Tour, people ask me questions like, how do I afford this? How did I get all this stuff? It's not about money. It's more about how you think. Stick with me for a moment. So there are a lot of game consoles from decades and decades. Most people enjoy starting, if they're going to start a collection, with the console that basically gave them the most feels or the most nostalgia. Mine was a mix-up of two. It was the Super NES and the Nintendo 64. That's where I had all the feels, all the memories. Even though I did start with the NES, I didn't really get, I guess you could say, into video games until I got my Super NES. I would play my NES on the weekends, every other weekend when I would stay with my dad, because that's where it was, until my grandfather bought me one, but by that time I already had a Super Nintendo. So I started with SNES. Games weren't that expensive back then when I started picking them up. I was actually working at GameStop in the early 2000s, and NES, Super NES games, you could get them for a couple dollars, 50 cents, 25 cents. And I wasn't collecting then. But once I saw these prices, I was like, all right, I'll pick up a few here and there. And that's kind of where it started. And once I decided to build a collection, I focused on what games meant the most to me instead of which games were the cheapest or which games were the most expensive. Which games were projected to skyrocket, which games were projected to drop. So, with that being said, that's the way I still buy video games. I would be lying if I said I don't buy with expected value all the time, because there are a few games, especially on the Switch, which I go, yeah, this might go up in value. There's something that's like limited run games, for example. Like when I bought the Grandia HD collection, I knew that was going to be one of those games. I didn't keep it sealed because I didn't want to play it, but I knew something about that was going to skyrocket, and I was right. So I did buy that, not because I just wanted to play it. I did want it physical, but yeah. But overall, like when I started trying to complete my Nintendo 64 collection, which I'm still only about just a little under 2/3 of the way complete, I went after the games that meant the most to me. I got my GoldenEye, I got my Star Fox, I got my Mortal Kombat trilogy, I got San Francisco Rush, I got my Cruis'n USA, I got games like that, WCW, NW Revenge, because I had traded in everything back in the day when the Nintendo 64 was switching over to the GameCube. I did that. Made the mistake. Again, I was working at GameStop, and I was like, oh, I want all these, and I traded them. So, about 4 years ago, I really started collecting again. I got myself I had a Nintendo 64. I picked one up again. And I really started collecting, and then in about 2018, prices started to go up, and I was like, maybe even as early as 2017. I started, I think it was in 2015 15 or 16 when I actually started like hardcore going in on retro gaming. And yeah, I noticed prices were going up, and copies of games, like I bought a box copy of Mario 64, and we all know where that went, for $30. I bought Earthworm Jim 3, the Earthworm Jim 3D for Nintendo 64. I got it for $20-25, and that skyrocketed. So many games that have skyrocketed, and I was like, ooh, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Collector's Editions, the gold carts, and they just started going through the roof. And then the Fantastic consoles, I had gotten an orange one at about 110, 120, and now they're sitting around two something. So they've been fluctuating lately, but yeah. So with that being said, now you got a little bit of backstory. What's happened with me, what I've been paying attention to. For example, like I said, with the Nintendo 64, same things happened earlier with Super Nintendo. NES is starting to level out, but the problem with the NES is finding working carts or non-bootleg carts. Bootlegs are big with the Nintendo 64. You got to be very careful with those. Sega Genesis hasn't had, I guess you can say, that longevity, that price hike that we've seen for a lot of Super Nintendo games. But there have been a few, like Ninja Turtles Hyperstone Heist, Shining Force 2. There's been a number of them that have really gone up. Ristar. But another console, we've got the Saturn and the Dreamcast, whose games have drastically spiked, all because of availability. So, knowing that we've got PS1, PS2, PS3, PS4, now PS5, we've got Master System, Genesis, Saturn, and Dreamcast, NES, Super NES, Nintendo 64, GameCube, Wii U, Switch, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and now Series X. Those are the ones that a lot of people go after. That's big current gaming sphere, I guess you could say. Yeah, we do have like Intellivision, Atari 2600, whatever. We've got those, and the Atari seems to be pretty cheap to buy these days. But what I say, this is a big thing. All right, if you know you want to collect for Nintendo 64 in 2021, buy the games that mean the most to you first. You may end up paying a little more than what you're aiming for, but get what means the most to you, because something happens, those games could skyrocket. And lately things have been... So pick up what means most to you, and then look for good deals while you're doing it. Don't just snatch the first one up. Oh, I paid $350 for Ocarina of Time Gold Cart. No, don't do that. You know, be mindful. Use price charting and stuff like that to know you're not getting ripped off. Next thing I would say is, if you just don't know where to start and you just want to start at the opposite end of what's popular. What? Yeah, people are like, oh, I want to buy Nintendo 64 and Dreamcast. Alright, how about you start with original Xbox? Do you like the Xbox? It got a lot of great gems on there. Right now, things are pretty cheap. Go 360 or PS3. Wow, they're still low. PS3 and 360, there are a few titles that are... But go in the places where the games are cheaper. Go with the consoles where you can actually start a solid collection for not too high of a price. I think that's usually the best way to go if you're unsure. But now, if you know you want to go NES, you want to go Game Boy, you want to go Game Gear, Game Gear's pretty cheap. That's not too bad. You can actually get a decent Game Gear collection, but it's just getting a working Game Gear. I still have my original. It works, but yeah. Now, there are other ways to play these games too. If you are having a hard time finding a working retro console, you got like the Retron HD and stuff like that, where great consoles to play these games. But at first, let me summarize it. We're already getting a little long-winded here. Start with what you love, what you have a passion for. If that doesn't do anything for you, pick something. Do what goes, tickles your pickle. If not, buck the train. Go the opposite direction. So buy what isn't expensive these days. Because we know Xbox 360, PS3, PS2 games are already starting to climb. But that little era right there might be your gem. Might be a great place to get started, to not spend too much, and just grow your collection. So there you guys go. I decided after a number of comments over the last year or so with game collection videos, with game room tours, I'll give you a little piece of knowledge. I'll drop a little on you about how I decide to pick up games. Right now, retro games, unless I'm looking for something oddball or something I don't have, I'm really not in the market to buy more Super Nintendo or Nintendo 64. Eventually I'll complete it, but right now I'm missing mainly a lot of the really expensive ones, like the Mario Party, Paper Mario, stuff like that. The Clay Fighter 63 1/3, Sculptor's Cut, the really expensive ones. So I've laid off. Super Nintendo, I just pick up ones here and there. Genesis, I pick up ones here and there. Dreamcast and Saturn, again, pick them up here and there. But lately I've been going on more of the newer consoles. PS5, Series X, and of course the Switch. The Switch is the darling console for me right now. It's just a fantastic console. It's got a lot of games. You've got games that run the gamut all the way across all the genres, and you can still get them pretty quickly, easily, and cheaply if you're buying them new when they come out. But if you can't afford to do that, you always have the digital way, but that's a different way of collecting. It's not something that we touch on this channel because we're not digital gamers here. Well, yeah, you can play games digitally. I do play games on Game Pass, and I bought games that come out digitally, but I prefer physical. So there you guys go. There's a little bit of knowledge bomb on you. Knowledge. So hopefully that helps you on your gaming collecting, retro gaming collecting, modern gaming collecting journey. Thank you guys so much. Remember to head on over to redbandanagaming.com. Check us out on our socials. Follow us there. Buy a shirt or some kind of awesome Red Bandana Gaming merch in the description below. Our spring shop is there. Like we always say, subscribe. I'm doing that way too often. You're going to get tired of that, aren't you? Okay. Subscribe, like the video, share the video. Thank you guys so much. Like we always say, be legendary. Thanks again.